together. So, a little bit about my story is, as you can see from the photo there on the left, it's not a super clear photo, but this was me in 2017, and I was in my first year of university. And by this point, I had been struggling with cystic acne for quite a while. And this is one of those very rare photos of me that year without makeup on. I was on a camp at university, didn't take my makeup with me, and someone snapped this shot, which wasn't too happy with at the time, but it's come in handy to tell this story now. Um, and I could not work out what was going on, so went to the doctor, got referred to a dermatologist, and then the dermatologist said, "Oh, yeah, it's hormonal acne. Here's birth control prescription and prescription for Roaccutane, which you'll have to be on for a year. There can be mental health side effects." And I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I started researching what can cause cystic acne. And a big thing that kept coming up was inflammation, and that it could be connected to foods like dairy or gluten. So I started my own process of elimination and landed on dairy, causing me these painful cystic acne flares. That meant I had to sleep on my back at uni because my face touched the pillow at night. It was incredibly painful. So very ironic, but fat actually alerted me to an imbalance in my system. But as we go along, fat actually, ironically, was a key part of my healing as well. So we have in the center here a picture of some fat that Di has kindly provided me with this photo. And this is in its state before you might actually render it down into tallow. And it's often the tender part of the animal. So I don't know if you've seen an animal carcass before, but you've got the bones and you've got organs and all kinds of things when you have an animal carcass, and fat is one of those tender parts of the animal. And it just made me think of Jesus, and it's on his way to the cross and how this mirrors his story, that before he goes to Calvary, he's whipped. And I don't know if you've read accounts of how brutal that was, but his back would have been completely exposed, incredibly tender. And then, yeah, his back, which was exposed, is then hung up on this cross. So you can see the threads along this story. And obviously, my cystic acne was incredibly tender. So there's this woundedness theme here. Now, if I go to the next slide, we can also see that fat is often overlooked, misunderstood, and discarded. I think particularly today, like I had always been told growing up that fat was bad for you, you shouldn't eat it. But it's interesting in this text, isn't it, that fat is actually something that is set apart and consecrated before the Lord and pleasing. And it's actually almost got the reverse kind of meaning of what it has today. And then as you make tallow, Di also provided this photo. There is the rendering process. Now, this rendering process is where you put the fat in a slow cooker, so you can see that in the background of the photo, with some water. And then there's this process of rendering where you can see there's that dark shadow that is on the bottom of the bowl, separated from like this more liquid part, where all the impurities and things are being filtered out of the product. And on the left-hand side again is me, and this is after I have found out that dairy has caused cystic acne flares. But it's my birthday, so I'm about to eat a lemon meringue tart or something, which it probably definitely had dairy in it, and it's going to cause a flare. But you can see there's a significant improvement in my skin there. And this is just before my life is about to change forever, and I don't even know it yet, but that's at 24. And then this whole process of rendering, um, if I go to the next slide, there's heat, which we can sometimes attribute to trials, um, a period of separation or purification. And this rendering process is often messy. Sometimes it's quite mundane or mediocre, boring, doesn't really make sense because you haven't got the finished product and you're not where you used to be, but you're not where you want to be. But there's also a time limit to this formation or this liquidation. So it doesn't go on forever and ever, which is such a relief when you think of trials. And it makes me think of Jesus in the tomb. And this is that messy middle before Resurrection Sunday, but after Good Friday, where it doesn't look like anything productive is happening. But actually, inside that tomb, God is at work in the dark. And then finally, we have Splendour, the last part in this process. And this is the part where Di would take that fat that she has rendered, whip it, and add all kinds of essential oils, and then package it in her beautiful little jar. And if you buy from her, she will put it in a lovely box with a card saying thank you. And this is the best bit because you can see the final finished product. And you can see on that photo from the left that this was me only probably 6 months after my 24th birthday when I still had acne if I ate dairy and that kind of thing. And this was eating butter literally every day. So I'd gone from not being able to have any dairy because it would trigger acne to eating things like tallow and other animal fats, which actually began healing my gut line so that I could tolerate things like dairy. I did have a relapse shortly after this moment, but that is a story for another day. But then we have on the right Jesus' hands, and maybe it's not as a splendid looking photo as the tallow and clear skin because there are still those scars in his hands. But this splendor is resurrection, where we're molded, sculpted, and finally a bit more useful at times in the Lord's service to now speak from those scars. So something I heard this week is it's helpful to speak from our scars rather than our sores when we have victory. Obviously, there's the middle part, and that's helpful as well. But this is really where our testimony gets power. And then, yeah, I imagine Jesus hopefully smelled pretty good at this point as well. He had all that perfume doused on him, and he didn't stay dead. So I wonder actually if Jesus would have smelt nice after the resurrection. And same with this tallow. It does smell nice. Wish I could share that with you, but I can't. And then, yeah, the fat has a unique purpose then for skincare in this example. And the fat in the Old Testament was also consecrated to the Lord as a pleasing aroma.